Hi everybody, it's Richard here again and welcome to another ranking video. Now this time it's probably my favourite American band of the 60s, and that's the Byrds. Now I say probably my favourite. It's a toss up between the Byrds and the Beach Boys. Just depends what sort of mood I'm in. At the moment it is the Byrds. Now the Byrds have had 12 albums. They started with their first in 1965 and then all the original members disappeared with the exception of Roger McGuinn, who was originally known as Jim McGuinn. I think Jim McGuinn's actually his real name. But then they came back in 1973 for their 12th album, and it was the 5 original members again. So first of all, I'll say how I got into the Byrds. I bought this album in the 1980s and this is the Byrds' greatest hits. I thought it was really good, but it didn't go any further. And I remember seeing Roger McGuinn in concert in 1988. He was supporting Bob Dylan. Well, he was actually supporting Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, who were supporting Bob Dylan. It was a 3-act set, and he was brilliant. And he played a lot of the songs off this. And I especially remember him playing The Bells of Rimney, which I always loved off this, which is on the first album. So that's what got me into the Byrds. But I started buying the Byrds albums on CD in the early 2000s, the Columbia remasters with bonus tracks. And once I started that, you know, I couldn't stop, had to get them all. Okay, so from going from number 12 to number 1, I will say I do like all these albums. I'm not a huge fan of the bottom ones, but you know, every single album has got its high points. But unfortunately, some of them have got their low points as well. So at my number 12, and it is actually the reunion album of 1973. This contains some good songs, but the thing I don't like about this album is it doesn't sound like a cohesive album. It sounds like solo tracks from each of the 5 members, well 4 members, because the drummer didn't write anything, thrown onto one album, and it just doesn't feel like a cohesive album at all. It starts off brilliantly with Full Circle, which is the Gene Clark song, which is great. Sweet Mary is it sounds very folky and sounds like the material that Roger McGuinn was doing just prior to this album. Roger McGuinn also has a song called Born to Rock and Roll, which I can't stand. Now I will admit Roger McGuinn is my favourite Byrd, even though I'll also say Gene Clark is probably the most talented, but I do like Roger McGuinn. You also get the song Laughing by David Crosby, which I cannot stand, it's awful. And I will also admit that David Crosby is my least favourite Byrd ever. I just don't think he's a great songwriter at all. But there's some other decent songs like Things Will Get Better, which is Chris Hillman's song, which is very, very good, and Changing Heart, the other Gene Clark song, which is good. And there's also a couple of Neil Young songs off this which aren't bad. I particularly like Cowgirl in the Sand, and then there's For Free, which is a Joni Mitchell song, which I don't like at all. Again, some decent songs, but as an album I just do not think it works. It got to number 31 in the charts. At my number 11, and it's from 1970, and it's a number 11 album, and it's Untitled. Now this is a double album. The first disc is live, the second disc is the studio. I'm only counting the studio part. Some other bands did this around the same time. Pink Floyd did it with Ummagumma, and the Kinks did it with Everybody's in Showbiz, Everybody's a Star. This is not bad either. It's got some really good songs on it, like All the Things, which I think is really good. Just a Season is very good, and We'll Come Back Home is also very good. But the problem I have with this is it's very bland. It's almost boring at times. Now the big hit off this was Chestnut Mare, which a lot of Byrds fans love. I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't like the spoken verses. The chorus is good, but it's not my favourite. Yesterday's Train, I think it's Gene Parsons' song. And I do like Gene Parsons' voice, but he tends to make all his songs sound exactly the same. I just think this is a bit bland, but it does sound better as an album over the previous one I showed, the Byrds from '73. but it's still not fantastic, but not a bad album. The live album itself is okay. There's one side dedicated to just a jam of 8 Miles High, which I've listened to once and I probably will never listen to it again. At number 10, and their 1971 album, their second album from 71, is Farther Along, and I think this is slightly better. It's got more of a rock and roll feel to it. Like Tiffany Queen is a basic rock and roll song by Roger McGuinn, but it's decent. BB Class Road I think is really good as well. It's a rock and roll one. Bugler, the Gene Parsons song, sounds exactly like Yesterday's Train from the previous album I just showed. You do get America's Great National Pastime, which is an oddity. It's a bit of fun. I like it. A lot of people can't stand it. But this album has one absolute brilliant song off it, and it's Lazy Waters. It's a cover version, but it's the best song off this album, and it's my favourite song of theirs from the 70s. A couple of bluegrass instrumentals as well, but generally speaking I do like this album, and it gets my number 10. And number 9, also from 1971, and this failed to chart along with Farther Along, and it's Byrdmaniax. Yeah, I believe that Roger McGuinn wasn't happy with this because there was a lot of extras put on, like backing vocalists and so forth. Not too sure if that's the case. I should have done a little bit of research, but I really do like it. It starts off with Glory Glory, which is like a gospel song. Pale Blue's good. I Trust, I think, was a fantastic song. Citizen Kane is okay as well. You do get that odd number, I Want to Grow Up to Be a Politician, but again, I do quite like it. It doesn't sound Byrdsy, but it still fits. And then you get Green Apple Quick Step, which is one of those bluegrassy numbers. And Kathleen's song is a really nice song. I think this is a very well produced album. It gets a lot of slating, I believe, but for me it gets my number 9. And number 8, and another one that didn't chart, and it's from 1968, and this is very critically acclaimed, and it is Sweetheart of the Rodeo. This is the one with Graham Parsons in it, and this is their full-blown country album. I like this in dribs and drabs, so if I was doing a Byrds compilation I would often take quite a few songs off this, but to listen to it as a whole album I tire very, very quickly. It's just too country for me. There's very few original songs. There's 2 Graham Parsons ones, Hickory Wind, which is decent, and what's the other one called, 100 Years From Now, which is the best song off this. It's a really good song. I also like the You're Still On My Mind, which is a cover version that Graham sings, but it's very country, but I do like it. You get Pretty Boy Floyd, which is done in a bluegrass way by Roger McGuinn, and a couple of Bob Dylan songs, You Ain't Going Nowhere and Nothing Was Delivered, which is very, very good. I do like it, but I can't listen to it all. I can only pick bits and pieces off it. So yeah, the other one I really do like is The Christian Life. So the Byrds' Sweetheart of the Rodeo from 1968, and again it didn't chart. It gets my number 8. At number 7 from 1969, and a number 41 album, and it's Ballad of Easy Rider. Now this is by beat up American copy with the ringware. The vinyl's in perfect nick. Yeah, it starts off with Ballad of Easy Rider, which is 2 minutes of brilliance, written by Roger McGuinn and Bob Dylan, I believe. Another one of my favourite all-time Byrds songs is a cover version of Tulsa County, which I really, really do like. You also get Jesus Is Just Alright, which is very good, plus a really slowed down but beautiful version of It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. Deportee is a really good song, and Gunga Din, the Gene Parsons song, just sounds like Yesterday's Train. Honestly, he's got a really good voice, he's got a really good soothing voice, but all the songs sound very, very similar. Yeah, I do like this. It's a really short album, and so it gets my number 7. A number 6 from 1966, and a number 27 album, and it is Fifth Dimension. And this was the first one after Gene Clark had left. Opens up great with 5D, Fifth Dimension, and then you get Wild Mountain Time, which is like an old traditional song, I believe. Mr. Spaceman, one of the catchiest Byrds songs ever, great. I See You's good song. What's Happening, the David Crosby song, is actually not that bad at all. I Come and Stand at Every Door is good. Side 2 starts off with possibly their best ever song, 8 Miles High, and then it sort of falls for me because Hey Joe, I just don't like this version. It actually sounds like the Velvet Underground. And Captain Soul is an instrumental and it's very basic. And John Riley is okay, it's an old folk song I believe. And then 242 Foxtrot, the Learjet song, is absolute rubbish. It's not a bad album. Side 1 is much better than Side 2, although Side 2 does have 8 Miles High. So Fifth Dimension is number 6. A number 5 from 1967 and a number 37 album, and it's Younger Than Yesterday. This is kind of spoiled a little bit. It starts off with So You Wanna Be a Rock and Roll Star, which is great. Have You Seen Her Face, which is great, which is Chris Hillman. Chris Hillman really comes to the fore in this album. CTA 102 is pretty good. Everybody's Been Burned is a David Crosby song, which I'm not keen on. Side 2, Thoughts and Words is okay, really good version of My Back Pages. The Girl with No Names, extremely good as well. But you have a song called Mind Gardens, which is a David Crosby song, and it is bloody awful. It is dreadful. It spoils the album. I would even have had a single, Lady Friend, which is pretty crap as well. On this, it's a single only release, which is better than Mind Gardens. It's just terrible, and it does spoil the album for me. This may be a little bit higher if that song had been removed. I just can't stand it. So number 5 is Younger Than Yesterday from 1967. Number 4 from 1969, and you may think this is a little bit high, and it's Dr. Byrds and Mr. Hyde, and I think this is great. It opens with This Wheel's on Fire, their best Bob Dylan cover. Love it, absolutely love it. Old Blue, about Roger McGuinn's dog. I think it's the first time he sung about a dog. I think Fido's about a dog as well, on the Ballad of Easy Rider album. Child of the Universe is very good. Nashville West is your little bluegrass number again. Drugstore Truck Driving Man is a co-write with Graham Parsons, which is a very good country song. King Apathy the Third is good. Candy is good. Bad Night at the Whiskey is good. The only one I'm not too keen on is the medley at the end, My Back Pages, with BJ Blues, Baby What Do You Want Me to Do. It's a bit of a waste. There was a song released on the CD version of this called Stanley Song as a bonus track. It would have been far better on this, and it would have made it a really, really strong album. But still, it is a good album, and it gets my number 4. Number 3 from 1965 and a number 11 album, and it's their second album, Turn Turn Turn. Really good. Love Turn Turn Turn. It won't be wrong. It's great. Set You Free This Time, the Gene Clark song, is excellent. Lay Down Your Weary Tune, the Bob Dylan song, very good as well. They do a version of The Times They Are Changing. Now normally I do not like anybody doing that because I always think they make a mess of it, Simon Garfunkel especially, but I do like this version of it. Satisfied Mind is not a bad version, although for me Lindsey Buckingham does the best, but I prefer this version to Bob Dylan's. And even Oh Susanna, which is fun, it's really fun. It's the jingly jangly folk rock of the first album. Not quite as good, but it's still an excellent album, and it gets my number 3. And my number 2 is from 1968, and it's the Notorious Byrd Brothers. David Crosby had left for this one. This is bits of country and bits of psych all mixed together, and it starts off really weird with Artificial Energy, which is full of horns, but it's excellent. 2 Gofflin King songs, Going Back, which I love, and especially love Wasn't Born to Follow, really, really good. Draft Morning, the David Crosby song's not half bad. In fact, this is his best album, even though he was kicked out of the band. Changes Now is great. Old John Robertson I love, although I do prefer the B-side of Lady Friend. because it doesn't have the fade in and fade out of this version, although I still do like it. Dolphin Smile is really good. Tribal Gathering is a really strong album, quite psych with elements of country, and then The Horns of Artificial Energy, really good album, and it got to number 12 in the charts. And my favourite Byrds album is their debut from 1965, and it's Mr. Tambourine Man. That's my favourite cover as well. This is brilliant. You get Mr. Tambourine Man and then I Feel It a Whole Lot Better, which Tom Petty covered on his Full Moon Fever, and it's hard to tell the difference between the two versions. The Bells of Rimney, which I mentioned earlier on, is on this, really good. Spanish Harlem Incident I really love as well, Bob Dylan song. All I Really Want to Do, another great Bob Dylan cover. Chimes of Freedom, another Bob Dylan cover. And then you get things like Don't Doubt Yourself Babe, which I think is a Jackie DeShannon song, which is excellent as well. And Here Without You and You Don't Have to Cry, really good album. And I even do like the last song, We'll Meet Again, even though every time I hear that song it automatically reminds me of Vera Lynn. But they do a really good version of it. But yeah, excellent album from 1965, and it got to number 7. And that's my favourite Byrds album. So the only couple other compilations I have of the Byrds is this one here, and it's just called Pre-Flight. And you can get this in different formats, different covers, and this is a lot of the songs they recorded before they released their very first album. So you have You Showed Me, I think is probably the most famous one off this. You do get a different version of Mr. Tambourine Man, At the Airport song, She Has a Way. So a lot of these are Gene Clark songs, and it is actually very good. And to go with the greatest hits, there's a greatest hits volume 2, but this doesn't really follow on from the first, because you do get some songs that could have been on the first, like The Times They Are A-Changin', but you do get I Wasn't Born to Follow, Drugstore, Truck Driving Man, Lay Lady Lay, Chestnut Mare, Jesus Is Just Alright, Ballad of Easy Rider, Going Back, Get to You. I think it goes up to as far as the Byrdmaniax album, because I Trust is on this, and that's about it. It's a good album, not as good as the first, but it's a nice companion to the first album. Okay, so that's my Byrds ranking. I do like the Byrds. I do like the two phases. The original phase is probably my favourite, you know, up to about 67 or so. But yeah, they are two completely different bands, and I believe in the early 70s, whenever they weren't having as much success, they were brilliant on the live circuit. I do have a CD live at Fillmore East 69, which is really good as well. But yeah, favourite, along with the Beach Boys, American band of the 60s. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope to have another video quite soon. All the best now. Bye bye.